Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, an illusion?
Where you been?
Drunk.
Wendy, darling, light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck off and die.
Western films. You know how I feel about my Western films. I usually, I shouldn't do this because I already said with October how I get too much on a horror diet that's all I consume is horror stuff.
Right.
And I do that with Westerns too, where it's like, I'm only playing Western video games. I'm reading Western books. I'm only watching Western movies. I'm wearing my cowboy boots to the store. You know what I mean? Just in my shorts as well.
Right. You're bathing in a big metal tub and with a bar of soap and you're
Oh God, I wish. Yeah. I need it. This was a great first. Like I think it started us off right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is solid. This is a great rewatch. And
have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
You fucker! Yeah. I've never. Well, I thought you got it mixed up with the Wild Bunch again. You were saying, so I thought that's what.
No, I know. Well, it's funny because we've seen the Wild Bunch, and the Wild Bunch is drastically different than this movie, but it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah, tonally, it's so different.
It's so different. Yeah.
So this is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge. That's Jordan over there, and I'm Levi over here. I should be wearing my cowboy hat, but I'm not getting up.
I know.
For the folks, just pretend.
You've shown us in the past that you're like, look, it's over there. It's up.
Yeah. So, yeehaw, it's Western month. We just fucking said it. And the first movie we watched, click the thing. And I'm amazed because this movie, I haven't been desperate to see it or anything like that. But for some reason, I keep putting it on the polls because I feel like it's a movie.
For years.
It's a movie that I need to see, I always felt like. But I'm never like, oh, yeah, I got to see Butch Cassidy. But I'm like, oh, yeah, it always pops up on lists. And I'm like, let's try that. Because it was on the 60s list, on the 60s month polls. And it was on one other one. And so, yeah, I'm like, I'm glad. I'm surprised it won, honestly. Because I never know what's going to win. I thought Unforgiven was going to win, but no one voted for it. So I'm glad because I'd never seen this, and I'm glad to finally knocked it off my list. And like I say, it's just cute, It's like a great. Normally, if you know us here, we like some good hardcore violence, and so I like a good shoot 'em up Western with some gratuitous blood. And this is obviously, I gotta admit, when I realized it was PG, I was a little disappointed, but I was like, you know what, Levi?
It's 69 PG, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have an open mind here. It's like, this is fun. I'm having a good time. But, and so, once I settled down into it and got real comfy into it, I got swept up, baby. This is my first time watching it, though, so.
Yeah.
When was what was your first experience like? Because if you said you already saw this, when did you watch this?
I don't remember. I think it probably just I think I lived in LA at the time, and so I was just watching movies, and it was just a random ass. I love westerns.
Yeah.
Let's watch it. It is a classic, and the funny thing is, I didn't remember the nitty gritty at all. This is definitely just kind of brushed over, and I didn't think too much about it. But on this viewing, I was there were the big moments that I could remember. But then this I was oh my God, this is really good. And actually having a more critical eye, and we've watched, hundreds of movies for the podcast. Seeing this film,
have hundreds of movies.
Over.
Oh,
how many? I don't even know.
Quite a pile. I mean, this is episode
500 maybe.
This is episode 188, but we've definitely watched way more than that for the podcast. But
right, because Horrortober, and then at the beginning we were doing 2 movies podcast. But I guess it was the same amount. But anyways, the sophistication of this on this watch, I kind of chalked it up as remembering it as it's an old you know, I couldn't remember like 60s or 70s movie. I was like, whatever, you know, it's got that vibe to it, the Paul Newman, you know, Robert Redford style. And so watching it this time, it could fit squarely in the 90s. Like it totally, it has that sophistication. And I was saying earlier that it like off mic that it like totally kind of blueprinted what we got in the 70s, and like that new wave of Hollywood. It was like right there. And like, so we will later, after we do the synopsis, and kind of get into a little bit how the Wild Bunch and this came out the same year,
Which is crazy.
They're
when you said
drastically different.
So yeah.
So yeah, but
I almost forgot about a synopsis. I like was gonna just
really?
breeze right past it. I almost forgot.
Well,
Our brains aren't quite there, I feel like.
I mean, Horrortober's done. I'm not even. Everybody out there, I'm behind on Horrortober, so I got a couple movies left to watch. So it's like we'll get the big.
Hopefully
full
they don't fade from my
podcast
brain because I watched them.
I know. Well,
Most of them.
You're a good
Most
boy.
of them.
And so, oh, I know. Yeah, you're a cheater. So we're all cheaters. But so,
do you want to give us a synopsis, or you want me to run it out?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I can give it a quick.
Give me a quick one because I don't
Basically,
think the plot is that important.
No, and the plot. It's like mainly there's like 3 main characters in this movie, and that's Butch Cassidy and then the Sundance Kid, and they're two like, I mean, they're two quote unquote factual people, and they did all these like crazy things. They were like bank robbers and train robbers, and just kind of just gunman type of deal, but they weren't like guns for hire. But anyways, they're just kind of like
Outlaws.
They're your like
outlaws.
Western outlaws,
Yeah.
exactly. Western folk heroes. They're your
At the
classic
tail end too,
dime-
right at the turn of the century.
dime store novel
type ones, yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like the late 1800s and early 1900s. So, anyways, it follows Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid. It opens where they're playing poker, and like they call him a cheat, and then they find out like, oh, you're the Sundance Kid, and he's like really good at shooting a gun, you know.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, cool. It lays them down. They go back and they go to their it's the
Hole in the
Wild
wall.
Bunch.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. They call them the Hole in the Wall Gang, and I'm like, is there something real to that?
Yeah,
Is
I'm pretty
like
sure
one of
that
their-
is
is
what
their
they're called.
hideout.
Yeah.
Oh, and so no, they were
In
called
certain
the Wild Bunch.
in certain areas, they're called the Hole in the Wall Gang. I'm pretty sure because I've read that somewhere.
Oh, okay,
before,
cool.
for sure.
Well, that was the funny thing is because like when I was like, oh, and then I read the Wild Bunch and I was like, wait a minute, Butch Cassidy. I was like, this is it's crazy how these movies overlap.
I'm actually
but then
pretty sure. I'm sorry to derail you, but like when they get back to the Hole in the Bunch and he gets there's the whole
the Hole in the Bunch.
the Hole in the Bunch, and there's the gang is there, and the one guy challenges him, but then the guy News is like reading the news article. It's from the Salt Lake Tribune, and that's why I was saying I know it's at least called that because I've read that article in real life. It's a real article.
Yeah, cool. Okay, sweet. And
I read it.
That's what's great. It's like there's that, and this movie draws a lot of parallels, or I guess vice versa.
I'm not a history buff, so don't I'm like
right.
It's not like I studied. It's not like I'm actually a scholar of Butch Cassidy. I'm like I read it at the side of a steakhouse. They had it there, like framed at a steakhouse.
Nice. But yeah, it's like I think last podcast did a rundown of them as well, or
Maybe.
they did like a bunch of they did like a
They
huge
did Billy
Western
the
one, and they
Kid, I
talked about
think, for
Billy
sure.
the Kid. I swear, maybe there was overlap, but it could have been. Who knows? I don't know. There's a lot of that like factual, this mixing.
So, they have their gang anyway. They have their gang.
Right. So they have
they
the gang.
fucking decide to rob a train.
Yeah. So like they're superior. They go to rob a train. They knock over this train that's like owned by some guy, and I can't remember his name. He's like, I work for Billy H. G. Wellington or whatever.
Close enough.
The train. Yeah, the train owner who they move payloads. So anyways, they rob him, and
twice.
I don't know. There's like
they rob him twice.
Yeah, well, they rob him twice, but that comes later. So it's like
just get to it. They rob him twice.
Then they rob him twice, but then there's after they rob the train, they go back and there's the woman. I don't remember her name.
It's like
She's
Evie
insignificant,
or
but-
something like that. Evie or
Right.
Eva or something.
Yeah, she's kind of like their partner, and they're like there's like a interesting love triangle between them. They love her.
She's
but
like
then,
she's like the straight man though. You know what I mean? It's like they're like living in this delusion world of like they're like, oh, Butch, you so and so, and Cassidy, you crazy son of a what? And she's like, guys, it's dangerous out here. Like,
right. Like what you do. But anyways, so you have her, and she's established, and she's like part of them, and those are like the three main characters.
Right.
And then Butch Cassidy, they rob that train again, and then they've got a lot of heat on them because the guy was like sick and tired of them robbing their train, so he sends this like peripheral oh my gosh, what is he? He's like he's a sergeant, whatever you call it.
Well,
oh my god.
Well, they never say for sure who it is that chases it, but it's the Pinkertons essentially.
Sure, right.
In real life, I'm pretty sure it's the Pinkertons, but it's just like this like crew of like these super trained, super like just like mysterious horsemen that are like work for hire, and they have like a ultimate tracker with them, and they're Butch Cassidy and Sundance are on the run the whole time, and they're keeping like, who are these guys? And they which is kind of becomes a joke at some point, but like they keep making guesses at who it can be, but they keep trying to lose them, and they come up with pretty good plans, but they just can't because this team's these guys are just so good. So like literally the whole second act is just like them on the run, like constantly.
Right. And it's like, but it's great because it's like how you got tracked then is like they would go to like a town and hang out in the town for a while, and then they would catch up with them, and they'd be like, oh shit, okay, we got to run again. And so they'd get on the run, and then so anyways they meet up with their girl, and they're like let's go to Bolivia because it's like that's a place that they've talked about, and that's kind of their like Butch Cassidy, their Sundance Kid have such a tit for tat and such a great rapport, and they're really like jokey with each other, and they're ride and die, that's for sure. And he's always like one of them. I got him confused like every twist and turn.
You son of a bitch!
I'm so bad at because they'd always be like, oh, you're the smart one, you're the funny one. And I like couldn't tell like I think they're just like riffing on each other. I don't think
Butch is the brains, man.
Well, I know, but like.
Andy's Paul Newman. So
yeah, that's yeah. So they go to Bolivia, and they're like,
and Evie goes with them too.
Right. Because she's like, oh, I'm a spinster here. I don't really have too many prospects. I'll help you, but if it gets too hot, I'll get out. And so they go to New York for a minute.
There's one thing I won't do, and that's watch you die. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah. She's like, if it gets too serious, that's too much for her, which it does. So they're there. They get some extra heat on them because they think they got freaked out, and they thought it was like the guy was coming back for them or something, and so they wanted to go straight because they were getting a lot of heat for knocking up all the banks in Bolivia, and so they get a job with a miner or whatever, some like ore company, and they're like the irony is now these two outlaws who rob banks are helping do bank transfers so that they can get the payroll to the mine. Well, as they're traveling the payroll, the like dude that owns it, whatever, the captain or of the mine, he gets shot and killed, and they're like, oh shit, like what do we do? And they are confronted with the like banditos, the dudes that killed him, and they're robbing the payload, and they're kind of like, oh, the tables have turned. Now it's our turn to like, save the payload. And you find out that like who never killed somebody. This is what I'm saying when I get them confused.
Butch, man.
Butch. Okay, yeah.
Fucking
when Butch
Cassidy. He is. Or no, the Sundance Kid. I can't say Butch without saying Cassidy. That's why I got mixed up. Butch Cassidy, he's the brains. He's never killed anyone. He's the
right. He's
Sundance,
a fast talker.
Sundance is he's the
gunman.
He's charming, and he's the gunman. He's the ultimate shot.
You're right. And I love that how he's like I got to be moving. That's I can hit a target if I'm moving. But anyways, so they end up killing those guys, and it's kind of intense, and they're kind of like done with they're contemplative. But anyways, Evie or whatever her name is, she goes back to America because it's like too much for her. She doesn't want to be part of it, and it's just like a normal everyday they're kind of there. You don't know if they're going to stay straight or if they're going to probably knock up another bank. And they end up going to a town. And then when they're in their town, some kid notices them, and he goes and he alerts the authorities. And during this time, there's like a war happening, and so there's like their army comes through, and they like pretty much attack them, ambush them essentially, and then gun them down. In just
they go out in a blaze of glory, but they get gunned down by like 100 guys.
Yeah, and so and in this movie it ends with like freeze frame and then just
you know what's going on. The odds are so stacked, but it's interesting because it's like they can't go straight no matter how hard they keep trying, and that's what it is because they after they kill their banditos, they're like, oh, okay, I guess we're just like, we tried and we can't. So they start robbing again, and that's how they get found out is they rob they're like robbing those dudes in the jungle. That's like now they're robbing couriers, and they steal a donkey from the mine that was the couriers, and that's how they get found is the kid.
That's right.
The kid finds the brand from that. And I looked it up, and that is how they actually got found out.
Oh, serious? Okay, cool.
Well, it sounds like, from what I understand, I mean, at least according to Wikipedia, this is pretty accurate for the most part. I mean, it hits the broad strokes of like, what we know of Old West Outlaws, what I mean?
Yeah, our so if you're new to Western Month and to our podcast, welcome, and we love you. But we always talk about the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
It's the best.
That's clearly the move. That's our like. That's not even like. That's not a benchmark. That is the.
It's the GOAT, man. I don't know. It's the GOAT.
Yeah, that's the only. That's like the greatest Western ever made. It's like kind of hard to. It's hard to like top it. And we've done a podcast on it, and we've talked about it, nauseum. So go listen to that podcast.
Go listen to that. But we talk about it every month. every November episode. We talk about it.
Pretty much, yeah. Every episode of Western, we have to like come back to it because that's the one. That movie does what this film does really well, where it does take a historical event, but it prints the legend. It's the broad strokes of how kind of invincible these guys were, and it took a whole fucking army to take them down. So it's like that's and how freaking like confident they were right up to the end, where it's like you don't know like the last things they said. You don't know. Their conversation isn't written down.
Well,
just like an assassination, it's like of Jesse James with the coward Robert Ford.
And I'm sure their camaraderie is nothing. Obviously, is no snarky because this is where it feels so 90s too. It's like it's definitely like an adventure. Like it feels like
it's a buddy comedy.
It's a buddy adventure. Like they're making quips. Like they never feel like I feel like they feel like they're in a different movie. I feel like they feel like they're in like a City Slickers or like a Young Guns, like something that's just like a little more lighthearted. And again, this movie is pretty lighthearted,
totally
on the surface, but it's just like there's so many of the conversations are so much more tragic once you look past the like demeanor of the main two, because everything with them is like the perfectly timed quip, and it's like it's a joke, and they're like kind of raffing like an old married couple, and it's funny and cute, but it's like, and then sometimes like the one that stuck out to me, like there are several. It's like when they try to join the army and they like lock up that one like sheriff or whatever.
Oh yeah,
but earlier on, like right at the beginning after they robbed the first train, Butch is like, man, when I was a kid, I always thought I'd grow up to be a hero. And Cassidy's like, well, it's too late for that. And then he gets like so offended about it. And it's like, but then they just have a cute little argument. But then it's like, for me, I was like, oh man, that is like a great moment for their characters. Cause it's like, and that sets the tone. It's like, nobody thinks they're the villain necessarily. Right. Like they're doing what they're doing and they think they're good guys. And it's like, they're showing us that they're like good guys and good friends, but like they kill people, they fucking, they're criminals.
They completely murdering a bunch of people. Yeah.
I mean, maybe not innocents, but they definitely kill people. You know what I mean? And it's like, but yeah, they're like robbing and fucking. They're not like these great dudes, and they're definitely not heroes. And it's interesting because it's like they think they're just like scrappy, and then it's like when it comes to the end, like probably one of my favorite parts is like when they're in Bolivia. And Evie's like, well, like, I thought we were going straight. Like, that's why I came with you. we were going to go straight. And they're like, well, what about farming? And he's like, I don't know nothing about farming. And he's like, what about ranching? He's like, that's a young man's game. And they're like, it's like just sad because it's like that's like all they know. They keep trying to go straight, but they can't like figure it out. They're like, all right, buddy, let's join the army. And then they're like, oh no, they'll never let you join. You guys are fucking, they will bury you under the prison, and
no, really though. Yeah. That was the whole thing when like, I love that they touch on that. Cause I'm like, there's no way they could join the army. Like they're so well known.
I know. And they're like, we won't even make them make us captains. And they're like, oh, how generous. Like,
I love that. Yeah. Cause that just shows like their aspirations, and they're like, and it is their kind of, they're naive. Like they seem like they've been kind of stunted in doing this, and they've gotten away with it for so long.
That's the thing. They always get out of a scrap, and they're always like, and Cassidy's ready to shoot his way out or not.
And that's
see, now you got me mixing it up.
I know.
Sundance.
Don't worry about it.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. So it's like, but that's what's so beautiful about the ending is when they, for just a moment, they're like, oh, was the Pinkerton out there? The dude with the straw hat. Yeah. Was he out there? And he's like, no, I didn't see him. And he's like, oh, good. I was worried for a minute.
Yeah, I thought we were in trouble for a second there. Yeah, they're literally surrounded by a fucking army.
Yeah, they weren't able to see, so they're like
beautiful.
They're taking cover, and it's just, dude, that is such a good last line, and such a good. That's where I'm saying this movie, the sophistication in this film, where like they really. It wasn't a low budget film. Like we'll get to that in a minute, but like I compared it to Wild Bunch too, and it's like they're the same budget, and Wild Bunch has such a bigger production value.
Yeah, there's way more like set pieces, like in the Wild Bunch.
Feels like definitely like more old Western Hollywood style filmmaking for that movie. Especially with like its bravado and machonism, which this movie has that clearly because it's a period piece, and so like you can't really avoid it. Like they're like kind of their womanizing and like
of course
they're misogynistic, quips. But it's like that just kind of comes with the territory. And in this, it's a little more tongue in cheek, and like it's great because in this movie, I'm like this movie ages really well, where like they seem really fun, and I'm just like. I know it's because Paul Newman, like he has it. That's the thing. It's like he has that like charisma and charm that it like their relationship seems so tight. Like I feel like they're like best friends off camera. Too.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
their chemistry was
beautiful.
so fucking good because it's like I really like. I mean, I don't know about as a person, but I really like Robert Redford. And I kind of almost didn't recognize him because he is really young in this, and it's like I'm kind of used to him being a little bit older. And like the two of them together is just like such he's like the Sundance is the best sidekick. And it's like they just have like such a good thing going that like how could they not lean into that dynamic, It's like obviously like as the filmmakers, like they kind of like got to have their cake and eat it too, where it's like we want to make like because like structurally this movie just follows like a real timeline. It's like it's story all over the place. Like there's so many unresolute, like their gang just falls apart and they never talk about it.
And that's what I love. On the Wild Bunch, it's like the Wild Bunch is like the first hour and a half of that or whatever is just the gang together doing stuff.
Yeah.
Where this movie, it's like the gang is like a 30 minutes. And
the rest, after the second train robbery and they go on the run, they like never see anyone in the gang again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like two of them get killed and then they're just like fucking peace out. And then they're split up, and then they're on the run, and then they never get caught by the guys that are chasing them for an hour of the movie. They just fucking flee to Bolivia, and then they're like that's their chance to be safe and clear, and then they just like they know nothing else, so they just resort back to crime, and it all catches up with them. That lifestyle, that's all they know. It just catches up with them. But it's like narratively, that's all over the place, but it still really works, and the fact that it's great. They're the core. It's like even though the story is like I said, it's like on paper if you take out all the dialogue on paper, this is like kind of a tragic like outlaw story. You know what I mean? But it's just like they got this buddy comedy energy that like makes it so charming for anyone, and that's why it's like this is a great PG. Like this is a great introductory Western. I feel like because it's like if you're gonna get someone into Westerns, like it's not too grimy, but it's not too like it's not like the
flowery.
50s. Yeah, it's not like
they're not just standing there going like, "Hey, pretty lady." Like
Remember-
it's nothing like that kind of like.
what we talked about before, where it's like the
sterile. It
yeah,
doesn't
the
feel
like
sterile. It's
John
grimy.
Wayne era of like the
Right.
40s and 50s, where it's like the romanticization of the era. It's like doesn't really do that so much. And so it's like this is a perfect intro, and being PG like it is, it's like I would show this to my kids. They would probably be like,
Oh, they'd be bored.
please do not
probably,
make
just-
me not now. I mean, they're too young now, but like
But no, that's, yeah, like a
but
12-year-old.
like
would be
please do not make me watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Dad.
Yeah.
I know you're watching it. You're gonna like westerns or else. But
Well, of course. I mean, yeah, they're gonna.
why else did I
grow
have?
up watching the podcast?
Why
too,
else
so-
did I have kids other than to shove my beliefs and likes down their fucking throat?
I know. Well, yeah, No, I'm serious. Like, I'm retiring, and you're gonna have your kids do the podcast with you. So
All right. But I don't know. Like, I do feel like the more I talk about this movie, like, I really, really liked it. Like,
oh, dude, I love this film. Yeah, like what? Like, I mean, I've kind of got your first impression, but like, what did you think this movie was gonna be when you saw it? Like, I thought it was gonna be like an old school kind of 50s. Like, I didn't really expect. Like, when I first saw this, I remember liking their characters a lot.
yeah.
and I thought like I was like, oh, this is a cool film. Like, I loved the ending. That left such a huge impression on me.
Yeah.
And even now watching it again, I'm like, oh my god, like, it's cool. There's like contemporary music. There's
right.
there's some like,
It's weird. Like the
It's-
contemporary
there's
music
some-
always jars me in these kind of movies, but it works though.
it worked really well in this
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, like but I'm almost like it felt youthful. Like there's such a cool young filmmaker.
Well, same with the
vibe
editing.
to it.
The editing, especially during like the montage sequence near the end where they're getting chased, that editing felt very late 60s. It wasn't like classic, this isn't The Searchers, which is what I was expecting. I was expecting tonally
Totally.
The Searchers, right? Like this,
Right.
It's like an adventure, but it's this noble cause, and it's like these guys, these outlaws. I wasn't expecting like a buddy romp, like a buddy romp adventure that also is like, but they're like lovable criminals.
Well, and I think something that's great too is like on the point of like their charisma and like, but then getting like little light glimpses into like how well they can act, Robert Redford and Paul Newman, when they're with her, and like the whole rapey vibe at the beginning, and when he shows up in the house, and like I was like, I knew who she was because I've seen this movie before, but I do not remember that at all. And so I was like,
makes her undress at gunpoint.
yeah,
I was like,
God,
this.
I'm like,
I'm like, he's too likable for this to be real. Like, that's what I was saying.
Right.
I'm like, they're not going to make
Exactly.
Robert Redford make a woman undress at gunpoint. I'm like, they have
Yeah, he's
to.
not gonna-
And then I'm
he's
like,
not gonna
okay,
essay
they're
this
obviously
woman.
already a thing. You know what I mean? But
Right. But anyway, so like, but that after the bike ride, when she's like, do you think like we would have, if I met you first, do you think we would have gone together? Like, we're so happy. And it's like that acting has him like kind of just being like, whatever, like he's throwing it off like it doesn't matter, but like he does care, about her, and like he is like kind of heartbroken, but it
was,
and it shows their dynamic too, as
exactly, because that moment, and then the moment when she's deciding to leave and they're just around the campfire and she's like really having the emotional weight of it, and they're just like, yeah, do what you got to do, but it's like, but it is very subtle. Like you could tell they're sad, but it's like earlier on, I was like, oh, I don't really care about this like kind of romantic subplot. Like it doesn't spend too much time on it, but as it went, I was like, yeah, the subtleties of these characters and the performances, like you say, it like brings them out, because it's like they are like these macho fun to each other, and it's like movies do capture that, but it's like how guys often are, especially like back then. It's like, they're very like everything's fun and on the surface and stuff, but then it's just like when you get with like a woman and then suddenly you dump all your problems on them, and it's like, so it's like when they're with her, that's like when they're vulnerable, you know what I mean? That's when they're like kind of exposed, which is like, I'm glad they didn't become some like weird jealousy dynamic. and they kind of like just
yes.
like let it go because it felt real, where it's just like they respect her and they respect each other.
Yeah.
And so like when she just leaves, it's like that's so sad. That's the saddest part of the movie for me, because she's just like,
oh, dude, totally. And do you know what? No, it's like they didn't shoot it, but there's a deleted scene between that campfire scene. They are sitting in a movie theater watching. So that's what I loved, that opening of this movie, where it shows like an old Butch Cat, just like some old 1920s like silent film. It like that they were going to be watching that silent film in a movie theater, and people were going to be hooting and hollering, and they were going to be like, they're going to be upset because it's like, they're like, that's not what we did, that's not our life. And then they like walk her to the bus or to the train station. And so
I think that would have been good.
I think would have been an in between scene. I kind of wish we had it. I would have liked it, but it also like
we get a little bit of that when they're talking about like the guys trying to round up a posse at the beginning, but then Butch is like,
that's where I'm saying like that's strict comedy.
Yeah.
And perfect, executed perfectly. Like when he's doing it and it comes up to them on the balcony and they're like, I love this.
I know. He's like, I eat this with a spoon. Yeah.
Yeah. And just because it's great how like they're doing the sheriff is like, he's doing that like really motivational speech where he's like, let's ride up, get your guns, like
for
let's
our
do it.
kids,
Then, like,
you know what I mean?
Nobody was receptive, and he's like, are you serious, guys? Like, come on. Like,
I know.
it's
And then
great.
the fucking bike salesman comes up. Yeah.
It's so, oh dude, yeah. And then he buys the bike.
And then he gets the bike for later and it comes back.
Yeah.
But I do think that scene that you just mentioned at the theater, like that does make sense for like where the story goes. Because even though it keeps its tone on the surface and between the characters the whole time, all the way till they get killed at the end, but that's when things are starting to shift. So I think it would be interesting to see like them having this like realization, but it's like we as the audience, like if you're paying attention to the plot and like the other things being said that are like not jokes, it's like that they're just like this life of crime, and like it's like that's how they're going to be remembered. And they're trying to be, they think they're good men, but it's like intentions, fuck your intentions. If it's like how someone you rob someone and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to like hurt your feelings. Oh shit, sorry, dog. I just knocked my fan over on my dog.
Oh, good, yeah. Oh, you got a cowboy dog. There you go.
Yeah. She's, oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. Oh, her ears perked up.
Oh, Clem.
Oh, Clemmy. Now she's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Anyway, I got completely derailed by that. I don't know.
But it's okay. No, because her name's Ida, so there we go.
I was close. I said Evie or Eva.
Yeah, Eva. Yeah, Eva. So, yeah, I don't know exactly where we left off. But,
I'm just saying, like, I don't know. Like you say, it is surprisingly complex, surprisingly nuanced.
Something, but it also like
I don't think it needed it, but
needed,
I do think it would be interesting. Yeah, it's like
I mean that's where like this film. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. Because it's not like this isn't like my mind wasn't getting blown, but I definitely loved the tone, and it just seems so sophisticated. Like I can't. You really out there in podcast land, if you're gonna do a back-to-back feature, watch The Wild Bunch and then this movie, and they're same year, same story, and like they're so
could not be more different.
That I like. Yeah, that I can't explain like. I don't quite remember my take on Wild Bunch. I kind of forgot that we even watched
I really
it.
like Wild Bunch too, but I think I like this more.
I definitely 100% like this movie more. But I don't know. With Wild Bunch, it's like, I think I liked it because it feels different than Hollywood.
It feels more raw, which is why I like it, because it's like a little bit grimier.
I'm pretty sure if I remember, it's one of the most bullets ever used in a film.
Well, at the time too, it was like one of the most violent. Like it's still pretty violent, even by today's standards. I mean, not like it's no Terrifier 3 or something, but it's but for 1969, it is like there's a ton of blood in it, and so. But you know what? That makes me think that it's like you mentioned earlier. that this is like kind of a good template for like how 70s style movies are going to become.
Totally, yeah.
And especially for Westerns, it's interesting because I think The Wild Bunch and this are like the two, they came out the same year. They're the same story, but tonally they're completely different. And like the style is completely different. And that is kind of the two branches that Western films ended up taking in the 70s. Because in the 70s, you got like more of the, the kind of quote unquote anti-Westerns. And like this, that's when, Clint Eastwood took the reins from Sergio Leone and kind of like more of these like violent, grounded Westerns. But then you also get like, the more Hollywood adventure, like kind of uplifting Westerns. And it's like, that's definitely what Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is, but it's like it's got all the nuance and subtleties to kind of back it up, even though it's not like a traditional like 3X structure, and like it's deeper than it would have you believe just based on the characters. But it's interesting that like those two things, like it does feel like diverge the path for the next decade, kind of for the genre, and I guess kind of movies as a whole, because Wild Bunch is definitely like more just a handheld camera, some of it. It's like more violence. It's more gritty. It's telling the tale like we're a bunch of outlaws. And this one's like, man, I can't believe we're a bunch of outlaws. Like.
Yeah, right. And I guess it falls under the, it's called the Wild Bunch, so you're gonna follow the gang more. So then that totally works. I
gotta say, in this, I laughed out loud, when they used too much dynamite on that train. The second time.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Because I was not expecting it. That stunt, dude, that stunt guy, I don't know how he's alive, because that explosion like ripped around his body, that whole train.
Well, dude, I'm assuming that they probably used styrofoam or like some sort of like,
had to have, right?
Plaster, not real wood.
Yeah, dude, something, because that guy, I was like, holy shit.
No, but for real,
it was good.
It blows and it looks great. And what was awesome though is, where I laughed. So I loved that because but I remembered that so vividly. Like that's such an iconic scene in the movie, and like it's hilarious, and it's beautiful. Like the money floating.
Yeah, you know how I like a good money floating down in the air shot.
Yeah, we like money shots for sure.
We put it in our movie, so
I know we did that. Yeah, we did the fluttering of money coming down, and then people like greedily grabbing it. It's great. It works really well for like. It's very cinematic. But the part I didn't remember is the first time when they blow up the door, when that guy, like Edie or whatever, is like behind it, and he's like, I work for this guy, I won't let you in. And they're like, we don't want to hurt you. We're just stealing the money. You're not going to, you'll be fine. We don't want to hurt you.
He wouldn't get blown. Your boss wouldn't get blown up for you. You know what I mean?
I know exactly. I love that. And so but he hides, and like when they blow up the door, I forget they come in, and he's just limp
fucked up, dude. He's like got blood all over him and stuff too. I was just like
but I love how they're like so caring to him. They're like, "Hey, are you okay?
You all right? All right, he's gonna make it."
And then that's funny. And then they double down with him being on the other side of the door again, and they're happy to see him. They're happy to hear him.
He literally, the attendant is literally like, "Oh, Butch, you know me better than that to fall for something like that," because they try to get him to come out. They try to trick him.
They're like, "Let me see you." And they're like, "Oh, is that you? Let me see you." And like he's like, "Oh,
like, hey, how you mending?"
Yeah.
Which I think is like this like folk hero kind of vibe. Like, it never alludes to them ever being like this. A lot of people look at like outlaw characters as like, oh, they're like a champion for the like lower class man. Even though these guys are never shown to at all be like a Robin Hood type, like I don't know if they're giving back. They're probably just spending it on booze and prostitutes or whatever. But
totally, yeah.
It's like everyone like kind of likes them, and it's like because they are charming, but it's like they're also like I don't know, like everyone is just like interested, like, and that's kind of how it was back in the Old West too, a little bit, where it's just like, oh shit, like these guys are robbing the train. Like the conductor gets off and starts following him. He's like, I just want to watch,
Right. They're local legends, and it's kind of cool to show like the like everyone on the peripheral just they're not violent. Like they're not like they are violent, but they're not like psychotic trying to just murder for fun.
Right. Well, that's the thing.
They have
it's
a
like,
job to do. They look at it as professionalism. Where they just
call it noble if you want,
sure.
But it's like it's they have a code. They don't kill anyone outside of the game. just like
Right.
fucking Omar. You don't put your gun on anyone outside the game.
Okay.
And
What is this, the 12th time you're watching The Wire? Like,
I know. I finished it and it's still fresh, but
this has got to be a Wire podcast. We gotta start.
yeah, but and that's true because it's like the only people they do kill are like those banditos and I think like maybe one other guy, but like.
Right.
Yeah, it's like for the citizens, it's like no, they're just like a minor inconvenience. Like we don't rob you, citizen, which is what's quite the difference between the amazing train robbing scene from the assassination of Jesse James and Coward Robert
my
Ford,
God.
where it's like they're straight up criminals and they let you know and they rob the people on the train, and when the guy doesn't give it up, they're not they brain him and like bust his skull open, and they do not ask him how he's doing after. You know what I mean? They fuck his shit up.
No, that's
And obviously that's like more of a realistic depiction of that.
That's more. I mean, that's definitely 100%. Like,
I mean, you can't beat that train robbery. Like these train robberies, don't get me wrong. This is a great train robbery, but you can't beat the train robbery from that movie. You can't beat it.
I know. Yeah, I know. Like, that's gotta go listen to that podcast because it's just we really do. We talk about that movie every day and
every
episode.
November, dude. I want more train robberies. Yeah, we should. The next poll. I don't know what I want to put on there just yet, but I want more like. This movie was great, and this is why I always kind of like. Before I watch the movie to get a feel for like what I want to do next, because I don't want everything to be too the same. So since this was like, this was safe and smart and like kind of lighthearted and it was like nice. So I'm gonna flip it and I want like the next poll is gonna be like grimy grindhouse westerns from the 70s and 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want to put because Fulci made a western. I'm gonna put it on there.
Oh, for reals?
I put it on one of the polls last year, but now that we just watched The Beyond for Hortober, I'm like really wanting to watch it now because it's like apparently it's pretty grimy.
We've yet to watch El Topo, so
El Topo is 100% making it on the list, but I'm always scared because they will win.
That. I want it to win.
I know. Yeah,
I haven't seen El Topo for so long. I'd love to see that movie again.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, El Topo, that's the one. But oh man, I'm glad. I'm definitely. Do you got a money minute? Because I'm curious.
I sure do. I got a fun little money minute today. So, this movie was $6 million, and it grossed 120. Oh my gosh, let me look. I had it up, but it's like 120 million. So
wow.
it was over. It was in the 100, and I like. So what? Oh no, not 120. Excuse me, $102 million.
Still breaking 100 million in the 60s.
No, I think so. That's why I did a little sleuthing because I was like 100 million in the 60s maybe is possible, but I'm like, I don't know, man.
It's borderline obscene though. That's a lot.
So but what I did, so I'm assuming that it probably made like 12 to 15 million. But they did inflation because I went to the Wild Bunch and the Wild Bunch made 11 million. And for inflation, that's 95 million in today's money. So
that makes sense.
I think they did a little. I think they did that whole which is like fine because that's a fair way to look at it. Like the Wild Bunch made 95 million and this made 102. So like they made very similar, So they had very similar popularity, which is cool because it's like. But I don't know. I feel like Wild Bunch was for your dad, and then this is for like the grads. Like this is for it's teenagers, but 20-year-olds that are like getting into it. And like it's the fact that like when I was reading the contemporary music in it, I think was composed for this movie, or it was either composed for the film or the artists that composed it they used it for this film, but it didn't. The movie wasn't made until they were in pre-production or in post-production. Like they already shot the scenes. And they were finding the song to put in to edit to. And so this was the song that did it. And the composer of this song, the creators of this, were like afraid that it was going to be kind of hokey to have in like a Western. They didn't know if it was going to work. And it kind of like didn't work in the first screening of this movie. Like people were like a little confused. But I'm so happy that it went in. Like even though it's kind of dorky it works. So
I appreciate
well. I love it.
the like ballsiness
It's
of
just
it.
different. It's different. Yeah.
It is always hit different because it's such an intentional choice when you're making a period piece to like set it any contemporary music. Because
and I'm thinking of Quentin Tarantino's.
I was about to say
Western,
Tarantino, right? Because
right. He does that.
he's got like hip hop in Django, and
did he do contemporary in Hateful Eight?
no, I don't think so because he ended up
right?
doing Ennio Morricone's like score.
Oh, that's
and-
right. Oh, duh. Yeah, duh.
Which
Of course,
is
yeah. So, 'cause contemporary
so
technically,
good.
but,
I love
but
this
it's
score.
timeless. I mean, it's fucking Morricone.
You know what? We've never
Amazing.
watched Hateful Eight for this either.
I know. Yeah, make the next one
I'll
be
make it more
super
modern.
grimy, and then do like modern. Yeah.
Like a modern one.
But I know that's Django. Django like has, and Django works really well though too. But Django's like its own beast. We actually did that movie too, so you can listen to that podcast.
We did,
but
do
that's like one of our
Django.
first. So I don't know.
Yeah, that is an
I don't know
older
how-
one. Django's older.
I don't know how well that podcast holds up. So
That's like
you-
under
you warned.
15 episodes. So like
Yeah,
one of those.
it really is. Yeah, it is.
I don't know how that holds up. It's like I think that like our opinions were all still pretty good back then, but I'm gonna go back and listen to it and this is like racist or something all of a
I
sudden.
know. I was
like,
going to say we're like trying to get Trump to vote or something. Because
don't even
we've
talk
got-
to me.
we have an election right now going live. Dude.
No,
I'm fucking-
don't
I'm
even
falling
talk
apart.
to me right now.
Yeah.
All right. I got one Reddit. I bet you can guess who it's from. So, Clones of People 2 says, my first watch of this has a reputation of being one of the classics. And with Paul Newman, it's been one I've wanted to watch for a while. My first thoughts are that it feels odd for a Western. Our two main characters are stereotypical bad guys, but they have a very clear hero role. The soundtrack took me by surprise, too. It feels almost out of place for a Western, although I loved the cappella chant piece when they're being pursued by the Oblivion Police. Yeah, that montage is great.
God, that's so good.
That's also the editing. That's what I was talking about there. Is very like 60s editing.
Yeah.
With the cut back and forth, like anyway, the cinematography was as expected for a Western. Great scenery and wide shots. The sepia stuff at the start was great at building nostalgia, but the montage in the middle was unusual. I found
the New York montage. It's funny. I wasn't a big fan of the New York montage. It was too long.
I'll take a quick pause from his comment to mention that was my only real complaint. That montage, especially because it's like almost entirely photos. It was like 2 to 3 minutes probably, but
like a full song.
It felt like fucking 20 minutes because when you're watching 3 minutes of a photo montage in the middle of a movie, it feels like forever, dude. Like I literally like pulled up my phone during that part and then I like put it down and I'm like, it's still going. Like, I hardly ever do that, but I was like, I was glazing over the pictures.
I wish I could have like
for just photos.
Yeah, I wish I could have fast forwarded through it because it definitely was like it didn't add anything to the movie. I don't think it was like bad per se, just too long.
It was way too long. That's the thing.
Yeah, way too long.
It needed to be 30 seconds tops.
And I feel like I don't quite understand why like the budget. It's not like their budget was like drastically low or anything. Like it just like. Yeah,
well, I don't need to see their whole romp and like them getting on the ship to Bolivia. Like that's fine.
You don't need to shoot those scenes. Like doing the montage is fine, but even just like shooting them on the boat or like walking up the dock or like something in between to break it up. It would have worked. But I mean, whatever. It
gets right back into it quick into the like third act once they're in Bolivia. Like it gets right into it because they get there and they're like, what? This is it? This is boring, like basically.
And that's what I mean. I know. Well, I love that. That's such a good cut to that. But like, it kind of sucks because it's not as impactful because you don't really get to see the debauchery that they're having in New York. Like when they come with fancy clothes and stuff and they get there, like that juxtaposition is fantastic. Like them getting off the train, but you don't quite get the impact because you didn't like get to see them necessarily. Anyhow, I want to hear more. About,
he goes on to say, I found the relationship between the two men and the woman to be odd. I felt that this would be a source of conflict, but it didn't really lead to anything. Overall, I like this, but there are parts where I question directing or plot choices. But this is one that I'll revisit in the future. 7 out of 10. Yes, thank you for that.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I like their relationship a lot. Actually,
I
get it though. It does kind of lead you on. Like you feel like I feel like they could have easily made that a little more dramatic, but. I like it.
But I think it's so like catches you so off guard because the buddy comedy aspect of it feels so familiar and like kind of expected. Like you kind of every time there's like an underhand and then the fucking other character just like knocks it out. Like it's just it's perfect. But the story and the relationships do not follow conventional Hollywood structures. So it's like, yeah, when you introduce a love triangle, normally you are expected to have a drama, a conflict, but that doesn't happen. This movie, it sets up many early on conflicts that you think are going to be the arc of the entire film in a regular 3-act structure, to which amount to nothing in this. Like the plot and the story were everywhere, and it did feel more real because of that. Like it did feel like it was just following their real story.
Like I say, energetic and just like a young filmmaker making it, which the guy's not, and apparently he's not really that great. But anyhow, it's like,
but I see where you're coming from, because it's like the plot is questionable, just the way that it moves, but yet I think the more importantly than the plot is the pace, right? And so it's just like, even though the plot was disjointed, the pace was, I felt, fantastic. Like they were always on the run, just one step ahead of danger. Like something always felt like it was going to pop off, but it's like in between. I just got to have their great camaraderie. And it was dope. And it's like just when they go to one section to the next, like it's like later, like at the end, it's like it all kind of just keeps coming back around. Like they go back, like you said, to the bank that they robbed earlier. Yeah. But this time they're like, the good guys, quote unquote, trying to be working stiff.
I know, and it's so cute. It really is. Like it does feel. I guess that's why I say sophisticated. Like it does feel like such a a contemporary comedy where they're like at the bank, like hiding their faces, like walking by, and like, and it just, I like how like they're always like second guessing yourself. And I guess you're right. Like it is like, it's written so well for I like the setups. I like how they riff off of each other.
Well,
like
they
it's
prioritized, character, which at the end of the day, I think is far more important than plot or whatever.
Right.
And it's
I guess Wild Bunch gives you the set. If you want the dramatic set pieces and like the road, like there are countless characters in that movie. Like the Wild Bunch has a lot of people in it. And so like if you're looking for that dynamic, I think that works really well. Where this is more stripped down.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm like the Wild Bunch is great, but it's definitely more concerned with plot, where this is more concerned with story, which is more like the journey of these two men and they're kind of like the audience having revelations for them, you know what I mean, about like their stake in life and so have you, as opposed to A leads to B leads to C, which is what a lot of other movies are. But yeah, I obviously thought this movie was dope. I really liked it. I gave it on Letterboxd. I gave it 4 stars with a heart.
Oh, nice.
Because I agree with you that it didn't amaze me, but it's like it is such a solid fucking movie. It's so tight and well put together, and then like the heart is just because of my love. It's like my love for Westerns. Like I'm biased because of the genre, and it does it well because there's a lot of great Westerns out there, but that's why I keep talking about fucking Assassination of Jesse James. Keep coming back.
I know, because that's just one of the best movies ever made. So
it is. But very few Westerns, like I have an idea of a Western in my mind, like a perfect Western for me,
Yeah.
And I love Westerns, but very few of them fit into that hole. And I think the closest that they've come is Assassination of Jesse James. But this one, it didn't fit in the hole just right, but it fit right where it needed to fit. You know what I mean? And like it's cozy. This is a cozy movie. I will 100% watch this again. One day. I don't know when. I who has the time?
Sure.
But
not this month because we're moving on.
Yeah.
We're moving on.
Yeah, we're moving on. So that's it. So thank you. Go to the Reddit.
Yeah.
Go to the thing. If you're on the YouTubes, hello. Go and vote. I like I said, I probably put up. We got to get back on track because it's always. Novembers are always kind of wonky to get started about like when shit's getting posted because we're just coming off of a crazy like schedule. Like I don't know when to post the polls, and so I'll probably post a poll like tomorrow to kind of start scooting us back to get ready for next week's movie. So keep an eye out for that to see what movie we end up watching this next week. Like I said, I'll probably go more of like a grimy grindhouse exploitive type Western next week. So
awesome. Yeah.
Just to counterbalance, right? Like I said, this is cozy, but I want something that's just like kind of nasty. I want a nasty Western.
I know. I mean, I love a grit.
Yeah, that's why El Topo, like an acid Western, a little.
Oh, dude,
little
El Topo, man,
grit.
is so El Topo fits like my niche really well.
I know.
But yeah, but Assassination is just one of the greatest movies ever made. So that's how that works.
El Topo fits it for
on...
the first 2/3, and then the last third is just like Hortorowski, man. He's just like.
I know. That's Oh, but if you want to support us, come to Patreon. That really.
Yeah, be good.
That would tickle us pink. And for the holidays are coming up, come give us a little present, man. Throw us a bone.
I'll get you a present, but it's going to be something I create because.
Heck yeah. Well, if you come to Patreon, we create things on there, and then you get them and you benefit.
I got some stickers and mugs and such. So, thank you, Westerns. We don't know when we'll get Horrortober out, but if you're jonesing for it, come and post and say, "Get your fucking Horrortober out," and maybe maybe we'll get Jordan the kick in the ass he needs.
We have 4 episodes of some movies, so it's like. Go listen to those episodes.
But people need to know our thoughts and opinions on M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit. Like, they just have to know.
I have. I mean, you know my opinion.
I don't know. Anyway, stay tuned for that.
We'll talk about it.
Probably by the end of the year.
Yeah,
we don't know. All right. Bye now.
Goodbye.